We also, I mean, to Commissioner Howard's point earlier, we were basically saying we're trying to accomplish a goal, and this process is kind of focused on Pillar 4 of the strategic plan, right? It's facilities and efficiency and footprint, right, in the county. I mean, it's doing things efficiently from a budget perspective. So does it make sense to put forth a monetary goal? I mean, we've talked a lot about capital requirements, how much money we have to work with, and any annual savings amount that we need to achieve. I mean, I personally feel like we should put forth a capital ceiling number and an annual operating savings as a target parameter, but obviously open for discussion.
I think that's almost a question you have to ask the community, don't you? I mean, that's part of what you're inquiring. I mean, you could put out some. I mean, you're going to have some background information anyhow, right?
Right.
I mean, I think what came out of the Chris Hartlow's spreadsheet out of the CEC, you know, maybe updated for the best information that we have, was one of the better tools that we had to say, you know, these are the kinds of differentials we're talking about, at least order of magnitude, and what that represents in terms of either, you know, trying to save some of that or trying to, or recognizing there's got to be an offset somewhere.
Now, were you thinking about that 60 million? Is that what you were?
I was thinking about the $60 million number that's been discussed in multiple
many times,
forums.
And that's what I want, yes.
What $60 million number?
Well,
What are you talking about?
I mean, we've heard the $60 million number thrown out a lot as a placeholder of how much we
Career
think
Tech
we
Center.
have,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
So, because I mean, if I go forth, it's kind of a story in terms of all the parameters, but I feel that whatever we come up with as a comprehensive solution needs to include a solution for career and tech, and it needs to include a solution for East Middle modernization. I think that those things need to be part of a comprehensive solution, and we need to lay out how much capital do we think we have as a county in order to put towards a comprehensive solution.
I am absolutely opposed to having a parameter that gives a monetary value. I think, you know, one of the goals we set is that our educational needs should drive facilities, not the other way around. So I think to just pick an arbitrary number without having any understanding of the impact that that's going to have on educational services is not comfortable to me. I do not agree.
Okay, what if it's not a specific number, but if we say, can we agree that whatever we discuss needs to have a solution for career and tech and needs to have a solution for East Middle modernization?
I'm not sure I understand why career and tech's involved. You're talking about redistricting, right?
Well, we're talking about a comprehensive solution
Well, we're
that
not gonna
meets
pay
the
for it.
educational needs of our students. We can't talk about all of this and in terms of budgetary constraints and then turn around and say, oh, but we also need another $60 million to deal with career and tech. If career and tech might, and that's one of the parameters I want to say, is everything's on the table in terms of how are we going to solve career and tech. It should be part of this. Are we going to build a new career in tech? Are we going to use space in the high schools for the skilled programs that are classroom based? I think that all needs to be considered as part of this.
So what are you asking the citizens to say? I mean, I don't know how you're going to understand what their answer is.
I agree that that needs to be part of the solution, but I don't know that right. I don't know that that's a parameter.
Okay.
It's definitely part of whatever process we set up would need to include that. An outcome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do it in a way that minimizes capital outlay. Don't throw out a number, but basically say we need a solution that encompasses all of these things.
Because it definitely needs to be included, because that is part of the problem with career and tech. Or where are we putting this? And what are we doing with our older schools? And that's why I wanted this change to facility use. And
Maybe I thought we were further along with career and tech, but I'm not sure why that's a factor. I mean, we've had a budget that's been reinforced a couple of times. I know we're looking at different ways to implement it, but didn't we narrow down to some extent that it's going to be where it is and it's going to be some sort of a revitalization? And we've got, I mean,
We have an ed specs committee that's currently working on career and tech modernization.
I don't think there's any outcome this committee could come up with that would make at least me not want to go forward with whatever the best use of that budgeted funds are for getting career and tech done. I think that's a separate issue.
Well, we've got a significant amount of excess space in our high schools, and that's expected to become even worse in the future in our high schools. I would like to see whatever group we charge with coming up with a solution, that they consider the fact that we're going to have significant empty space in the high school classrooms, and are there career and tech programs that, because we have a need in career and tech for certain programs, none of them are the heavy trades that have to be necessarily centrally located. So is there a place to consider those within each of the individual high schools?
So I think, right, that can be part of our solution. We also have an ed specs committee looking at the Career and Tech Center, but I don't think there's a parameter to give to the community based on that. I agree that we need to have a comprehensive solution. I agree with that, but I don't know that there's the parameters kind of.
It's more solution than it is parameter.
Correct.
Right.
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 So-
And plus, we still don't have the ed specs back yet, so we haven't even addressed what those needs will be.
I simply felt it needed to be a parameter that career and tech needed to be considered, and that the fact that our biggest capital project on the CIP is an East Middle modernization that we're really struggling with, and we're saying that we need a solution for that in some way. So I feel that that needs to be part of this comprehensive plan.
One of the parameters that we have there says to look at facilities, and what does the one say, how we would, and keeping open facilities that would meet the future educational.
For 5 years.
Right.
What we're saying is that
So
the parameter would include any comprehensive facility utilization capacity that would allow us to get to our targeted utilization over the 5-year period. So in other words, I think that inherent in that would
Yeah.
include East Middle and Career and Tech Center.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, as long as those are part of the overall, so
Well,
there
when
needs
we-
to be consideration of those things, because in an ideal world, we had all the money we want to work with. We would go out and we'd build a new career in tech. We would modernize all of our buildings. We don't have those
Right.
type of capabilities. So how do we optimize the money that we do have to work with?
And we
Herbert.
want to keep that in consideration. So, I mean, this is part of our solution that we've got to come up with. And I think I'm on the same page there, that we definitely, these are some of our big problems that we need to address. So we've got to make sure, whoever this is, or in these parameters, that we are addressing that career and tech and that East Middle with $50 million. So if you don't think, I just feel we need to make sure that somehow that's in there, included in those parameters.
I just think that when you consider whatever you want, but my concern is that this career and tech project is going to end up disappearing if we don't get it done and we don't stay committed to it. And it's really, you went through a process. We threw out some crazy ideas, or at least I'll take credit for the crazy ideas that I was part of. And we heard loud and clear, no, not scattered all over the place. Not that you couldn't do some additional classes somewhere else, but to me that's the same kind of decision that you might say, listen, we may do a computer programming class at Manchester Valley the way you would make a decision whether you were going to run an extra history class at Manchester Valley.
Doug, I do want to be very clear. If you give us money to modernize the Career and Technology Center, we will accept it.
And
So
I would-
I don't
and
want
I
there
would
to be
argue-
any
Right.
confusion
And I would
there.
argue by the last three budgets, we
Right.
have.
Right.
So
Okay.
I would just be careful about,
I don't want,
No,
no
and I
confusion
completely
there.
agree with you. It just can't be an isolated discussion. This all needs to be.
I think it can, and I think it should
has to
be.
be included.
I think what you do with that facility is still in the works. I think you should assume that decision's been made and move forward with the rest of what you have. That's just my advice.
Mr. Lord,
No, I'm
sorry. I thought you were.
I'm getting ready to speak, but I have to think through
Okay, we
some
need some
things
more
that
time.
Justin said.
All right,
All
so
right.
we have these parameters, which are fairly broad. I think there's been some consensus is that it's all wraps up together.
Yeah.
So the question really is, and Commissioner Howard is right, we did go through a separate joint meeting, several joint meetings on the Career and Tech Center. is that up in the air now with this plan, or is it?
No, I don't want us to, regardless of, Donna, what you're saying, like, you're thinking about maybe pushing some classrooms out, but that doesn't take the place of modernizing the Career and Technology Center that's
Correct.
already there. So
Correct. I'm simply trying to
Absolutely.
do it in an
That's not
optimal
changing.
fashion.
I think that's I think that's in the parameters, the broad parameters that we're saying feedback on. I don't want to go out there with, I mean, it's your choice, but it seemed to me counterproductive to go out and say, what do you want to do about the
Right.
Career and Tech Center?
Right.
No,
Yes.
no,
And
I'm not
that's-
saying
just wanna be
start
clear.
from scratch. I'm saying an optimal solution for all of those constraints needs to be included.
In the solution.
In the
In
solution.
the
Yes.
solution part. All right, are there any other parameters then that we need to add?
And I'd like to add to what's
Mr.
been
Lord.
said about the Career and Tech. I completely agree. We have a project that's been started, we're looking at the ed specs and everything, but as we're going through the process of looking at the parameters, the general, if we could put something in one of the high schools, maybe that is possible, but I don't think we need to really say, Career and Tech is back on the table.
No, we don't want to.
Yeah,
We just took
it's-
it off the table. And and everyone is still committed to that, so that's.
And plus, that is a facility that's used by every school.
Yeah.
It's not an individual facility that we could say, oh, we're just going to not do it because we can improve so many other things. So
All
I
right.
don't think that'll happen.
All right, Ms. Sving, did you have more to add? Because we do need to wrap up here.
I did want to make just a couple of comments that I don't want this to follow sort of a status quo process, and I think that we want to be creative. We want to improve educational outcomes. Is certainly one of the driving forces of everything that we do as a Board of Education member.
Perhaps
And
that needs to be a parameter.
I think from this perspective, I want
Improve
everything to be
educational
on the
outcomes.
table in terms of, consider all of our existing assets, in terms of, schools that currently exist, a land that's already been purchased.
you. I
I
agree
want to
100%.
consider the South Carroll Career and Tech Center as an existing space. I think all of that should be on the table. I think grade configuration should be on the table. Like, I don't want to actually take anything off.
Okay, so then,
I-
a parameter would be then to improve educational outcomes, and another parameter would be everything's on the table.
Explore any educational reconfigurations. I mean, what
Any
we're saying is
reconfigurations,
that
right.
don't limit to our current configuration of educational design.
Right. The campus concepts are on the table. K-8 configurations or other grade configurations are on the table if you think that that is a solution that's feasible and will improve educational outcomes
So,
and
as-
help us optimize efficiency in the organization.
I don't
fine
think,
with that.
you would have to limit them to not have them look at that, whatever process you use.
Okay.
I think rather than saying explore everything, you just say here are your parameters. Anything outside of these parameters, you're free to explore, including grade
Right.
configurations, campus concept, all those kinds of things.
Right, because I think
Because
with
you
the
could never
previous...
list them all.
Right. I mean, the previous board, I think, said, we don't want to consider grade reconfigurations.
previous
We
boards-
don't want to consider XYZ. I'm basically saying, I think everything should be on the table.
It's interesting because it was a two-step parameter. The original parameters given in, I believe it was February, were you're wide open. You explore everything. And then when it came back in September with a comprehensive plan, that's when the board said, you're limited to these three parameters. So I think, what I'm saying is, unless you say don't go there, the default is you can look at everything.
But I do think improve educational outcomes
I think
should
that's
be
what
on there. I
yes,
think
I
that
improve.
should be
I think
on there.
that should be the main driver.
Yeah.
Yes.
Will you, you add that one?
Can I make just one distinction, though, because there's 4 pillars in the strategic plan, right? The first 3 deal primarily with educational outcomes, and the 4th one is capital and efficiency, right? And operation of plant, right? So I think that we should say that the goal of this, though, is from a budget perspective, and we definitely don't want any negative educational outcomes.
Yeah, well, I think that,
Not
yes.
necessarily,
I
because
think
the
you
other
can
3
say it,
pillars of the
improve-
strategic plan are towards...
Improve educational outcomes. I think that's, we can state it positively.
Okay.
I wanted
Herbert.
to consider all existing assets, not just as existing. I don't want to miss anything. Right there. Yes, please.